Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. And now, before I call upon our first keynote speaker to come up, Umar Siddiqui, first I want to talk a little bit about his history with this reflection articles. So he was the one who wrote the first reflection article on the website, the reinforcing Republican principle ones. MashaAllah, it's still one of my favorite articles. But inshallah, for his keynote speech, he'll be presenting the retelling history, the one about the Shia, right? And just a quick thing, I remember before he wrote this article, me and Umar, we would meet to talk about activities, when reality would be talking about the book he was reading. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one because mashallah, I know how much work you put into it. So everyone, please welcome Umar Siddiqui.
No, I am not Umar Siddiqui. I am his great-great-great-grandson, and I am coming from the 1000th Annual Tamkeen Reflection Conference. So I would like all of you guys to join me, go in a time machine, and come to the year 3023. I am doing research on ancient Arab history, specifically a time period known as the Arab Spring, in which, subhanAllah, the people revolted against the great Muslim leaders at the time. For example, people like King Abdullah ibn Abdul Aziz in Saudi, King Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. And thanks to my research and the sources that I was able to find the information from, such as Al-Arabiya, I want to talk about one specific trader, a man named Muhammad Mursi, who put Egypt in terrible trouble, but alhamdulillah, thanks to Assisi, he was able to be put in jail. And this would not have been able to be done without the different sources and historical documents that I've been able to read.
No. What are you saying? What is this garbage that just came out of your mouth? I'm Umar Siddiqui from the first Reflection Conference, and I came here to tell you how wrong you are.
No, I am not Umar Siddiqui. I'm his great-great-great-grandson, and I am coming from the...
Technical difficulty. So, do you not know that history is written by the victors? All these leaders that you mentioned made puppet news organizations just so that people like you can be tricked into thinking that they were great, when in fact they were the most terrible people alive at the time. And in the first Reflection Conference, I talked about my article, Learning and Retelling History, which was about how the Shia tried to retell history as well. For example, if you do not know, during the collapse of the Umayyad Caliphate, the Shia started to spread some of their fake history so that the general public would join the side of the Abbasid and align and stop listening to the Umayyad. And so this is just one example, right? They were trying to change and fake the history for these political intentions. And we can even still read and hear the same history, the fake history that they try to spread. For example, I had to read...
The other button. No. Other button is the...
Oh, okay. I got it. For example, in my article, in my research, I had to read At-Tabari's history. And if you were to open his book, you would find fake and true, like the fake and true narrations all in the same book. And now you might ask yourself, why? Why would someone like Imam At-Tabari do this? Well, you have to consider the context that he was living in, right? The Fatimids were established just 14 years before his death. And the Buwayhids, they established themselves just 11 years after his death, meaning the Shia were in control. They were basically controlling the entire Ummah. They had so much power. And because of this, if he did not include these narrations in his own book, then his book would have been banned and we would not even know the history that we have today. And so, being really smart, he decided to put the isnad, right? The chain of narrators for every single narration that he got. And this way, people like you and me, we can come in the future and we can look back at these people and determine whether this history is true or not. Now, I'd like to mention just one of the fake narrations that I found in the book, and it's about the arbitration, which is, you know, when Ali radiallahu an and Muawiyah radiallahu an, after the Battle of Siffin, they decide to arbitrate, which means they get someone and then they're going to do a treaty, make a peace agreement. So Ali radiallahu an, he appointed Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu an, a great Sahabi, and Muawiyah radiallahu an appointed Amr ibn al-As radiallahu an, another great Sahabi. So we have two great people that are supposed to be negotiating against one another. But what does the book say? What does the narration say? Well, it says that Amr ibn al-As, he lied, tricked, and cheated Abu Musa al-Ashari so that he could make a one-sided contract. I.e., he was going to throw Ali radiallahu an and his army all under the dust, and then he would just make the best contract for him. And then after he did this, after he successfully tricked him, quote unquote, he was then laughing and making fun. Oh, you fell for my trick. And he started cursing Ali radiallahu an. And you will find so many other narrations of Muawiyah radiallahu an or Amr ibn al-As radiallahu an. All these great people cursing Ali radiallahu an. And you will find even more fake narrations just all about the Umayyad. And we as Sunni Muslims, we know this is not true. We know that the Sahaba, they would never lie or trick or try to cheat one another, and that none of this is true. And so this is just one example of one of the fake narrations that were put into the book to try to make the Umayyad look bad. Now I want to mention two fake narrators that are especially prevalent in these books. One is Al-Waqidi, and the other is Abu Mikhnaf. Now, if you were just to do a quick Wikipedia, if you search up Al-Waqidi on Wikipedia, then you will find a list of critics of he has. And let's just see who's on this list. There's people like Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam al-Bukhari, and even Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And there's so much more. SubhanAllah, if it were not for these scholars that stood up and said that these narrators are bad and fake, then we would not know what's true and what's right today. And as for Abu Mikhnaf, well, let's just say if one of the links that show up when you search up his name is wikishia.net, that is not a good sign. Alright. So this is why it's really important that we do not let the enemies of Islam be ruling the Muslim Ummah. Because at one point in time, with the Fatimids in Africa and the Buwayhids in Iraq, and they were even controlling the Khalifa Abbasi, the entire Ummah was controlled by the Shia, meaning they could tell everyone what to believe in, and they were able to convince the Ummah that their version of history is true. So we have to be really careful and make sure that we do not let the enemies of Islam take over our lands, or we will be open to threats like the Tatar, who came in when the Shia were ruling, or the Crusaders who were able to enter Masjid al-Aqsa when the Fatimids were ruling. And if we look at our situation nowadays with people like Bashar in Syria and all the terrible people that we have nowadays, then we are opening our lands up to the modern equivalents of the Tatar, Crusaders, and so on. And even worse, they may even try to retell history. Maybe in the future, people will be saying, thank goodness for Sisi, he was protecting Egypt. Or thank goodness for the King of Saudi, he let America into our lands to protect the Muslim Ummah. We do not want our history to be faked up by these terrible and garbage people. So we have to make sure that we take control of the narrative. We tell the true history, the proper history, so it will inshallah benefit us and the future generations. Jazakumullah khairan. And just real quick, I'd like to thank the Reflection team for putting all of this together. I understand the amount of hard work that went into it, and yeah.
right now we're gonna have a Q&A. So feel free to ask Umar Siddiqui any questions you have.
I can get started till people come with questions. Jazakallah khair, Umar. Wallah, this is an amazing idea, and we can imagine an earthquake happened and buried everything in back home in this kind of wherever the Arab Spring happened. Then generations, 1,000 years in the future, they were digging under the rubble after 1,000 years, and they found the newspaper. They found the recordings of the media controlled by those kind of regimes. Really, they are gonna say, Sisi, Bashar, King, whatever, those are the great people, and the people who were trying for freedom, they were bad. Now my question to you, how can we make sure this does not happen? If those people, they have their voices loud and they are recording everything and they are making sure that the coming generations, they are not paying attention to anything. So how can we make sure that we retell the history for the future? This is the first part. The second part, what is already in our own history that is basically garbage narrations, and they are mentioned by those who are counted as scholars? How can we correct past history and we make sure the future history is not gonna be falsified?
Two great questions. I think in ensuring that our past history is rectified, it's just going to take more work on our part. And first, analyzing, the different chains that we have. And number two, also being more vocal about it and not letting, people who believe in these fake narrations to keep on espousing what they deem to be true. And on the point of being more vocal, I think that's that's gonna be something that requires much more thought on my part. But once again, I think if we make sure that we try to spread the truth and we can disprove, right, and prove that these news organizations are just puppets or whatever, then when people find both in the future or whatever, then they will be able to disprove the other one if we try to disprove them right now.
Exactly.
So
you talked about rectifying history, and you also talked about preserving history. So, in your opinion, which one is more important and which one is more effective or influential on us today?
I think both are really important, equally, because we have to think about the future as well and the future generation, because they're going to be looking back at us. All right, what did we do? If we don't do anything and we're just and we just let history be faked up just like the people in the past, then we'll find ourselves in the same dilemma. So, and number two, we also need to fix that history so that people don't learn the wrong lessons, right? And so if we don't do anything, then we're repeating those same mistakes. And if we don't fix the past, then they might even still repeat the same mistakes because they will be looking in the past and not see any change.
So when it comes to let's say a chain of narrators for history, so is it the same as, let's say we're looking at hadith? Because let's say in history, there's probably a lot of people that we don't know who they are, we don't have their biography. But if that was the case, let's say in a hadith, where we don't know who this narrator is, this might make the hadith live. So how do we, when do you think we can accept historical reports, and when should we not?
Yeah, obviously, when it comes to the narrations concerning history, it's not as strict as when it comes to the hadith, right? Because these are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we need to protect those so much more. So we can be a little looser when it comes to determining, the reliability. But once again, when you have big giants like Al-Waqidi and Abu Mikhnaf, who are known to be, people who falsify history, then this should be a big no-no and something that we immediately try to cross out. So, yeah. So obviously it's not going to be as strict, but once again, we should still do our best.
How do you know that Al-Waqidi is a bad person? How did you make your judgment?
I trust the scholar's judgment as well. I showed it like Shafi'i, Imam Ibn Hanbal, Imam Bukhari, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. This is just one opinion. If we want to discuss all the other opinions, then we might need a conference just for that.
Escaping from your question. Escaping smartly from your question.
Assalamu alaikum. So you mentioned the future, we need to have the truth in front of all of the generations, but how about your close friends right now, that they might be on the other side of the table, that they love Assad, they love Sisi, but you don't like to lose them because they are your best friends. What would you do? You'll still be silent because you don't like to lose their friendship? Or what would you advise them to do? Or what would you do?
Well, I personally think that we should be as vocal as possible for spreading the truth. Like, even if it breaks some ties along the way, I think the preservation of the truth is much more important than some of the friends that we have now. And again, once again, like looking into the future, like it doesn't matter who our friends are, but it matters in making sure that the next generation learns the right thing.
So this is a question about the authenticity. How do you determine the authenticity of a report? Just like the earlier question was that for the hadith, we have books like Asma Rijal that discusses all the narrators of the hadith. So we know from the Asma Rijal whether the person was, Muhsin, or he was good, Amin or not, and things like this, and he was a true reporter or not. So what is the criteria, or is there a book of narrators that is being used for when it comes to history, like Tabari?
That's going to be something that requires more research on my end. I don't have an answer, sorry. I did, although come across a website, actually, Abdullah helped me, where we found the list of narrators that At-Tabari used for when he was mentioning hadith in the earlier on. And so, yeah, but I couldn't find anything on the, when it came to later on, the history itself.
So, to augment that, Tabari wrote not only history book, but he also wrote the commentary, tafsir, also. So if, and whatever the narrators he had, the narrators had to be the same from the contemporary time of his time, right? So more than likely, you can extrapolate the data from one to another and cross-reference and check. So between the two, like 90-95% of the narrators would be solved.
Yeah, that's kind of what I used. I checked like how authentic they were in reporting the hadith, and then if they were authentic, like I came across people who were deemed, not authentic, or yeah. So then I just, not consider those people. But the people who were considered good in narrating hadith, then I had more trust in them.
So my question to you is, can you break down some simple steps for us to take to go towards solving this problem, or helping to help mitigate this problem, basically, other than being vocal? Like what can we do? Where can we find reliable sources? And how can we break it down to others?
Don't submit corrupted files as articles. Step number 1.
So actually, I have a question for you. Like, Sheikh Imam al-Tabari, like he had a style specifically in his book, like either in the tafsir or even in the history, and he used to mention all the opinions
and he eventually he suggests like, and he says like, this is the opinion that I'm following. So that's the thing like you need to take into consideration whenever like you're saying like he's mentioning everything about the history or whatever, because he used to do that, and this is like one of the things like that's why we call him Imam al-Mufassirin, that he has like a major step over any one of the Mufassirin came after. So you need to read that and to speak like, and I would say like I felt kind of offended like when he said like he speaks like about everything and he mentioned everything because he was living in that age. That's was his style. Like, and this is like you could find like some people who are doing PhDs specifically focusing on how Imam al-Tabari was doing his history or even the tafsir, that he was known for that.
Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, definitely something once again will require more thought on my end. But I think when it comes down to, how do we find reliable sources? How do we deem something's correct? Well, that's just research on our end, putting more effort into determining what's true and what's not instead of just sitting around not doing anything. So, number one, finding out who's reliable and how do we determine who's reliable or not. And then number two, posting our findings so that people can find it, inshallah, one day.
If you allow me, MC, just for one comment over here, and talking to Anas, I know many of the people over here, they are kind of engineers, doctors, lawyers, or whatever, but where are the people who are planning to take their PhDs in history? And they would cover us from this direction. We really need to promote the value of history around the coming generations. So they say, I'm going to study history, I'm going to go to my master's degree, my PhD in history. But some people who have this Islamic direction, many times whenever I sit in conferences and I see people who are academics working in history and they claim we are working in history, even from the UW system or from other universities, and they claim we are making our research and we have PhDs in Islamic histories or Islamic studies. They say horrible stuff. They say garbage. I attended a talk of one of the professors saying, and I think Imam Bukhari doesn't know what he was doing, and now I'm correcting what Imam Bukhari has been doing. So, ya shabab, we need some people from you who have this good sense of what Islam means, what those great scholars are. They dedicate their life for history so that they can rectify whatever has been said before and make sure they preserve the history in the future. This is part of our job. This is something we need to do, and I hope you can motivate some people to say, my mission in life is to retell the old history and preserve the future history.
Also, just on the point that Sheikh mentioned, obviously I don't know everything, I'm still learning, and so inshallah, if anyone's willing to help, I'd love to write a part 2 to the article, inshallah.